The Warriors, just as a team, just stuck to their groove. I didn't think they looked like they were going to lose the game at any stage. I'd always thought there were tries in them. You put a robot, you put a guy with some ability, and then you put a natural gifted footballer. Right. You know, Andrew Johns was a 3. I put Luke in the second lot.
Is 18 and 6 realistic, do you think?
I think with their draw, definitely. I think the way the competition is laid out at the moment, they can beat all the teams below them.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome into the DSPN. My name is Lachlan Waugh, typically producing this podcast. No Martin Devlin this week. We will make do, though. We can make do without Marty, because really the brains behind the operation... Stay away. The brains behind the operation is sitting right here, particularly the Big League Tuesday brains. It is a Wednesday, but it feels like a Tuesday, which means we welcome in Tony Kemp. Before we get to Tony, I do want to actually just say we've had some great engagement on videos that went up yesterday. Thank you very much to all the watchers on YouTube, the listeners on Rova, Spotify and Apple as well. Some great comments. Please hit the subscribe button. Give us those subscribers, because we're looking to get to 7,000 as soon as we can, on our way to 10 as well. We do appreciate the support. Tony, you played for the Kiwis 25 times, played for the Knights. The coach of the Warriors in between, Ivan Cleary and Daniel Anderson as well. You're back. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be back, Lachie. The big seat. Let's see what you got.
I'll do my best. I want to start off with 2 questions. One's a longer one. The first one's a simple, shorter one. Yes or no, are the Warriors making the top 4?
Oh, you'd be a brave man to back against them at the moment.
I want to list a couple of sides here, and you're going to tell me, are they going to make the top 8 or not? Yes or no? Simple, once again. The Cowboys.
Maybe.
Sea Eagles?
No.
Bunnies?
Maybe.
Dragons?
No.
Roosters?
Yes.
Broncos?
No.
Oh, that last one. I have to agree with you. Let's start off with the Warriors, 36-30 winners over South Sydney. It felt like a different game compared to some of the games this year where there's been some lower scoring ones who had to grind out these wins. This was a lot more free flowing, and early on some stumbles. They found their groove, put on a lot of points. Then at the end, Souths started getting their way back into the game. Obviously that try to Roger sort of sealed it. Your take on the Warriors win?
Well, they won, and they just keep finding ways to win, don't they? So against the South Sydney side that won 3 on the trot, looking for their season to sort of pick up just outside the 8 or thereabouts. And I just thought it was a bit of a bitsy game, Lachlan. You know, like no one's talking about the 66 points. You know, defensively it was pretty average, and it was, you know, they come back into the game. The Warriors and then the South Sydney side would come back into the game, and then I thought Latrell Mitchell was, you know, after playing Origin on Wednesday night, absolutely outstanding. But the Warriors, just as a team, just stuck to their groove, got into their, you know, what they do best. And again, Luke Metcalf at 7 is just continually stepping up and bringing the boys home. So I didn't think they looked like they were going to lose the game at any stage. I always thought there were tries in them.
It felt a bit, which is silly because they only won by 6 in the end, and Souths chased them down. And Souths have had some moments this year where they actually look like a finals contending type side. And when Wayne Bennett's the coach, you can't really count them out. But I was the same watching. I mean, I'm not a Warriors fan, so I'm a bit more objective. But watching that game, I just felt pretty comfortable. I didn't think they'd lose it.
No, and that's a really good feeling to have too, because, you know,
it's a rare one for Warriors fans.
Over
the
last sort of, you know, 5 to 10 years, you're looking at the Warriors being run down and losing those types of games, but now you're sitting there thinking, oh, they're holding on. You know, they've got the talent in their side to get them across the line. So I think through this Origin period, and we talked about it a lot, you know, if they can string some wins and keep building that daylight between, you know, top 4 and bottom 4 in the 8, it'll put the Warriors in really good stead. Obviously a little bit of a hiccup with losing Mitchie Barnett to you know, serious knee injury for the rest of the season. I thought Jackson Ford, when he came on, though, was outstanding. So they've had players, you know, this we've talked about this as well, that have come into the side when you've lost some big players and really stepped up. And I think, you know, the bench, you know, after a couple of pretty ordinary weeks, really done a number on South, though, probably the difference. Yeah,
Andrew Webster, the coach, has said this a lot. I think he reiterated it last week in a media session, that it's just a next man up mentality. And it's really easy to say that. A coach is never going to sort of say the opposite, that he doesn't trust his players, unless he's someone like a Ricky Stewart, maybe. But whoever is on the field comes off the bench, whoever's come into the starting side or into the 17 that wasn't in there the previous week, they do turn up and do a job. And it's a sign of obviously a great culture. You'd know this better than me. Great culture, really good coaching and whatnot, and players who just have the engine and the motivation. But it's a luxury in a sense for a team that I just don't think has had that in the last 10 to 15 years, where these guys come on and they just do their job consistently, and you can trust them.
Yeah, look, and I think on a whole, you touched on it there. The club is, going okay. Like when you're a player, you're at a club, and there is a bit of a cliche. A team of champions. What you're really looking for is a champion team, and I think they sit in the ladder. The Warriors, their team is actually playing together. They're winning the percentages. Their systems are followed. They're finishing at the right end. Look at what Chance ran for on the weekend, over 300 metres, on the right end of all the statistics. And then I think with the way the competition is at the moment, really close to getting the 2 points. And then you look at the teams underneath them, the New South Wales Cup, their Flegg, their Harold Matthews. They're all going really well. So when you've Andrew Webster, you've got the luxury of putting players in who are coming out of a side that's beating the best of the rest in the second grade in Sydney and Brisbane. You do have a little bit of confidence there because they come in ready to go. And the best thing about having a New South Wales side, and it's always been a problem for the Warriors for years, is that you just didn't have players that were prepared as well as the New South Wales and the Queensland boys were prepared. You look at Melbourne, they pick players from 2 teams up in Brisbane because they put their players into that competition. They think it's probably better for them to get the heart of football. Unfortunately for us here in New Zealand, we don't have that luxury. The Fox is really the only competition that players can play in, but it's not consistently on par with the New South Wales and the Queensland side. So getting those players coming in, Lachlan, at the moment, and I think that's been the tell of the year, is that the Lekas, the Dimitris, the Labans, the Tuapikis that had an outstanding game on the weekend in second grade, when they do come into the side, they're ready to go and they don't miss a beat. And it's younger
players, Tony. That's one thing as well that's brilliant about the Warriors right now, is it's not only these experienced heads that they're managing to sort of hold on to or helping them win. It is this younger talent. Leka had another great game. Jacob Laban, obviously he and Leka have re-signed recently. I'm personally a big fan of Leiataua, who I'd like to see get a bit more game time, but obviously he's battled a few injuries as well lately. But there are some seriously good young players as well. Yeah,
but look, contracts aren't really worth the paper they're written on. They talk about signing them out for 29. If you've got a good manager, and I'm talking to a guy about the manager's stuff, which we'll touch on in a minute, but having those young guys in their first year in first grade, really, when you're looking at them, I know Jacob played a few last year, but you do go unnoticed because in first grade there's so much analysis put into you that you're being told about, you muscle up on this young kid. Like when Leka gets the ball, he's going to really challenge you. But when you're in a game and there's 17 other players around you, you tend to forget about that kid. And that's the first year that players have. They come onto the scene, they really hit the ground running, and they really make a name for himself, what this kid is. And everyone's talking about Leka and the way that he's hit it as a teenager. His real challenge is the next couple of years when everyone actually knows what they've had an off-season to prepare, and then they come out the following year. They call that second-year syndrome. It's when you step through that and then go on and become, I think I read in an article this week that he's going to be one of the great players that ever played the game. A bit early to call it that.
Yeah, steady on.
He's definitely stepping up at
and
we've
seen that with a few Warriors players. Ali Katoa was a good example where first couple of years was great. The form maybe didn't drop, but as you say, people knew about him a bit more, and then obviously goes off to Melbourne.
There's been a lot of the first year. It's like a musician, isn't it? They're one hit wonders.
Luke Metcalf, who going into the season, obviously question marks around his ability to be a 7, or at least wear the jumper and help the Warriors win games. Very much more of a running half than a playmaking, guiding half, I think it's fair to say. But he just continues to play well. His kicking game in particular, I think, is just getting better and better and better by the week, and he has this air of confidence about himself as well. I mean, are you as shocked as I am that this guy's managed to grab that jumper and play at such a high level and guide this team on the park the way a 7 pretty much should?
Look, I'm not shocked that Luke Metcalf can play at this level. Like, I've been a fan since day one. Ever since I've seen that kid play, like I said, it reminded me of a young Andrew Johns type skillful player, you know what I mean? So I'm not shocked that he can play at that level. What is, I guess, really surprising is his level of maturity. To step into a 7 and guide a team around in second and third, and every week seems to get better. And it's very structured, the football these days. You've got, like I was telling you, grids on the football field that you go through, your selection of kicks, your selections of runs, when to run, and then your ability to play football. This kid has gone in, and he's a coach's dream because he's doing exactly what the coach is saying. And then you look at the players that are surrounding him; they're just doing their job. Like Chanel isn't setting the world on fire, and Egan's popping in and popping out when he wants and controlling the ruck, which is giving Metcalf a free rein to do what he's been told to do from the coach and keep the teams in the football games.
So is it? And it's not. I don't mean this in any way as a criticism of Luke. It's just out of curiosity. Is it more a coaching thing or an instinctual thing that he's playing this way? Is it down to his own natural ability? Or do you think it's...
Yeah. So you talk. I put those into 3 categories. You put a robot, you put a guy with some ability, and then you put a natural gifted footballer.
Right.
You know, Andrew Johns was a 3. You know what I mean? I put Luke in the second lot. So he's a very structured player with the ability.
Right.
And then you can look at, you know, other robotic halfbacks that just go out there and they do a job. They're never going to set the world on fire. I think the competition's got more of them at the moment than they have of the latter two. Can he get to the stage of being a player that actually plays off instinct? I think he can, because he's got such wonderful assets. One, he's got speed, so you see him run for another 80 metres last week, score a try. Yeah. No one's going to catch him. You know, he runs around the halfback who try to, you know, get him and playing against him. Has got a kicking game. Defensively, I think if you're looking at it and analysing his defence, which no one talks about, he needs to pick that up, because, you know, they will set...
Well, how much do you really rely on your halves from a defensive perspective?
Well, they normally defend at 3 in, you know, which is a key spot next to your back row. And if you remember Andrew Johns defending in that area, you didn't want to run down there because he'd pick you up and throw you on your head. It didn't matter. His defence was just as good as his offence. I think if you're looking at Luke going into the back end when you do get into finals, which I think they'll play in, you're going to get the likes of Bellamy. You know, you're going to get the likes of Serraldo if they're still there, or whoever going. We're just going to actually really tire Luke out and send our traffic there. And you saw that again on the weekend a couple of times. I think 2 tries were scored where Luke missed those tackles and just got caught out a little bit. And that's been happening on a regular basis. So I doubt whether Webster's sitting there not knowing that that's one of the areas that they need to work on. But I think as we go on, that's one area, a serious area that they're going to look at, is making sure that Luke's really solid and deep.
Yeah, so if you're the Warriors then, if that's happening and Luke's getting tired out and he can't play to, say, the level that you might want him to come the finals time, and teams target him a bit more.
Well, they do that to Jerome. You know, if you watch Jerome Hughes play at Melbourne, they do that to Jerome. Right. You know, they try and tire him out so he's not as lethal around that spine.
But I guess they have a few guys outside of Jerome who they can rely on, right?
Exactly.
Whereas the Warriors, it's you know, Chanel's great, Chance is playing well as well, but
so you
not
at
that same level.
So you look at it like that, then the others have to step up. You know what I mean? But I think he's puts really good defenders around him, around Luke. You know, you've got the wingers still shooting in. It's always I don't know how many texts I get on a weekend saying, "Mate, how do you stop those wingers? Mate, they're wingers. You know, if they didn't score tries, you probably wouldn't need them on the football pitch." But if they're gonna go to a competition, I think what Luke's done this year has been above what everyone's expectations were. Can he absolutely go Daily M, you know, win a competition for the Warriors? And if you were to seriously think about halfbacks that come out of the Warriors, is he a Stacey Jones? Is he a Sean Johnson?
Well, I'd lean towards no at the moment.
100%. Yeah. But what assets would he bring to the team as a young half to get to a Stacey Jones and a Sean Johnson? And that's why I put him in that ability in the middle. That's probably the next step.
The Warriors right now 9-3. Just double check that 9-3, 12 games in, so they're halfway through their season. If you want to look at the numbers, you can say they're on track to go 18-6. That would be spectacular if they went 18-6. 2 years ago they were 16-8. And it's fair to say, this has been covered a fair bit on this podcast, the draw is, I won't say softer, but it's more workable than maybe what other teams have. But a big test this weekend away to Cronulla. They've got Penrith coming up soon as well, and then there's a run of some pretty beatable teams after that. When you're looking at this team during the Origin period as well, is 18-6 realistic, do you think?
I think with their draw, definitely. I think the way the competition is laid out at the moment, they can beat all the teams below them. You're going to get teams that go on a run. You know, I'm a little bit concerned that Penrith will go on a run. Coming out of Origin, if they can snap a couple of wins over the next couple of Origins, and you get Cleary, Crichton, Edwards back in their side. Liam
Martin.
Liam Martin, you get all those guys. Sorry, not Crichton, Liam Martin I was talking about. You get those guys back, and across the board their team lifts. And and it's always the way, like when you're playing over there, you get the Origin players back because the team's such a great lift, because you're watching this great football, and then all of a sudden they're back in the team and you're playing alongside them, you know what I mean? So that's why the Warriors at the moment, with that 4-point buffer between the 4 and the bottom 4 of the 8, they just need to keep that daylight. With the draw that they got, injuries play a big part. Hopefully we don't lose another couple of players to injuries, especially you don't want to lose a Luke Metcalf at the moment.
No, for sure.
Then I think they can go as good as 18-6. But if you break it down, no one cares about the beginning of the year, because finals don't start till the end of the year, and you got to get there. All right, so they're halfway through the season. Now it's breaking it down into blocks and saying, can we win these games through the Origin period? Can we kick on through the back end of it, and where we're actually going to sit and who we're going to play coming into the finals series? That's when the excitement starts. And I think at the moment the Warriors haven't got their eye on that prize. They've just got their eye on the game every week to make sure they get the 2 points to get to that back end.
Yeah, and there's a number of teams in the recent past of the NRL that have managed to get to the grand final or get into the top 4 with a late season surge. So you're right, it's almost like that post-Origin 3 push.
Last can get there. They're sitting 4 points out the 8. You know what I mean? The competition from 4th down to bottom of the table is 4 points outside the 8. So you're halfway through the season, you're sitting last, and you still can make the 8. You know what I mean? And when you think about it, so let's really break that down. There's 16 teams, 17 teams. You only have to win half your games. You're in the top 8. You're in the final. The competition's sort of set up that way. Like you're going, you made the top 8. Well, you only have to win 50% of your games to get there.
DSPN.